since I've already taken the time to talk about Tom Chapin in an earlier video, here's a link to that if you're interested, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into the top 25 Tom Chapin songs.
Homemade lemonade, not from concentrate. Fresh squeezed straight from tree. Really, 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 really great.
Throughout most of his albums, Tom Chapin tends to use this collection of characters quite a bit. This cast of characters, led by the matriarch Grandma Hall, consists of a variety of people, starting from Bruno, who seems to be an adult male, all the way down to Baby Gale. And I always really like when he uses these characters because these are characters that I've grown to enjoy listening to quite a bit. So in this particular song, Tom Chapin takes this cast of characters and has them put on a show. But not just any show. He has them put on Annie. So we get the cast list with all of these people being the characters, and we get really excited to see them in these characters, even though, of course, we never actually see them in the characters because, you know, we're not going to see the play itself because this is a song and they're not going to do an entire musical. But, you know, it's nice to use our imagination to imagine these characters in these particular roles. But what this song does really well is that it just reflects the excitement of putting on a show. It reflects on all the little elements, every tiny little detail that goes into putting on a show, from the stuff backstage to the stuff on stage. There's also a storyline outside of the whole putting on a show thing. Baby Gale wants the part of Annie, but because she is too young, the part ends up going to Shirley. But throughout this entire song, Baby Gale laments the fact that she is unable to play Annie because that's what she wants to do more than anything else. On opening night, Shirley is sick, and because Baby Gale is the only one who knows the part, she gets to go on and perform her dream role. This is incredibly unrealistic, especially considering the fact that A, she's a baby who can sing and talk, B, was told that she was too young to even play an orphan, and yet she can somehow fulfill the main role, and C, and most importantly, to make this more dramatic, we don't find out that Shirley is sick until Grandma Hall has already called places, and then somebody, not the director or the stage manager, points out that the lead actor isn't there. However, despite all this, it does capture all of the excitement that goes into putting on a stage production. And it is nice to see Baby Gale get what she wants in the end, even if it is incredibly implausible.
Really, 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 really great.
Every Christmas, Grandma Hall.
This is another song starring the same cast of characters, but this one is Christmas themed. Grandma Hall takes the kids to the mall to see Santa, among other things, but then inadvertently leaves them behind. Instead of panicking, Bruno and the gang decides to just go and explore the store and have a grand old time. Now, like with the last one, this one isn't entirely realistic. In fact, it kind of has a troublesome connotation. Not only did Grandma Hall leave these kids behind, it's implied that she's done this. And not just once, but multiple times. However, I can look past this simply because I love this song so much. I mean, how many of us wish that we could have had this opportunity to run around a store during Christmas time? It's that chance to be free, to run around in this magical land where there's no rules and no regulation. That opportunity to have anything that you could possibly want. It's a nice thought, and I think that this song does do it very well. We're almost able to live vicariously through these kids, and so we can experience what we never really had a chance to. Also, the song just sounds very Christmassy, which is always nice.
Really, 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 really great.
This one is just fascinating. Tom Chapin took, I believe, 10 cornet cadences and set lyrics to them describing a typical day at camp. Before we go on, it should be stated that I don't actually know if cadences is the right word to use here. Cadences is used to describe drum breaks, but I don't actually know if it's used to describe bugle or cornet breaks, so if I'm using the wrong word, I apologize for that ahead of time. I've never actually been to any sort of camp aside from the ones that are put on by my church back home, so I can't really speak for the authenticity of the song, but it's still a really fun song to listen to. The way he uses these cadences, most of which I've heard before, is just incredibly creative. Each cadence is used to describe a different portion of the day. It starts with Tom arriving at the camp and ends at the very end of the day as he's going to bed, which, incidentally, is taps. It pokes fun at camp from the constant playing of the bugle, which is where the cadences are coming from, to the questionable food. And yet it never denies the fact that this is still a fun place to be. As many hardships as you may find going to camp, it's still apparently a lot of fun. Now again, I've never actually been to camp, so I can't speak for if it's accurate or not, but it's still a really fun song to listen to. And I think it does a good job of explaining both the good and bad aspects of going to camp. And the fact that one of the cadences is one of the cadences that we played all the time in marching band just adds to the fun.
Really, 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 really great.
This is one of those songs that's just ridiculous and a lot of fun to listen to. It tells the story of a couple of kids who end up with a former mobster for their babysitter. And already this song is completely ridiculous, and we haven't even started talking about it that much. Now, despite what it sounds like, things do not go horribly wrong. Remember, he's a former mobster. But this does mean that they use a lot of the stereotypical 1920s gangster stereotypes. I just said stereotypical and stereotypes in the same sentence. I am redundant. He speaks with a gangster attitude, as you can hear here.
Harry the Hat don't like dirt. You clean up before the sight.
He mentions Al Capone, he talks about being in the big house, and he even makes them an offer they can't refuse. By the way, that's an example of a joke that I didn't get when I first listened to it, but looking back on it now, it's really funny. But he also has a few idiosyncrasies that do not tend to be associated with 1920s gangsters. Like, he likes the book Good Night Moon. No, seriously, he even says at the very end of the song that he likes the book Good Night Moon. All of these references and just putting this 1920s style gangster into a decidedly ungangster-like atmosphere just makes this song a lot of fun.
Good night, Moon. I love that book.
Really, 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 really great.
With a bark, 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 and a woof, 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 and a pan, pan, pan.
If any song gets dogs, it's this one. There's not really too much to say about this song. It's a collection of rules connected to dogs, from don't sleep on the sofa to watch out where you pee. I do think this is a good representation of what goes through dogs' heads when they're living their life. And really, when you listen to it, it's obvious that not all dogs follow all of these rules, but, you know, these are the rules that the dogs hear from humans, so these are the rules that they tend to try to follow. One thing that I really like about this song is that there is one rule that is repeated, and that is any food that hits the ground is yours. This rule is important enough that it's the only one that gets repeated. This is wonderful to me because dogs really do love food. I mean, obviously, a lot of people love food, and actually everybody loves food because you need it to live, but if you really think about it, whenever you're eating in a house with a dog, or even just making food in a house with a dog, the dog will sit by your side waiting for food to fall. This whole song is just a nice little nod to dogs' idiosyncrasies, and it's just wonderful.
Really, 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 really great.
Now, I have no doubt that we have all been in a similar situation to the poor people who are in this song. Preacher Herman is giving a sermon and just doesn't know when to stop talking. Despite the fact that the entire congregation and the entire choir is ready to just get up and walk out the door, he still doesn't wrap up his sermon. Aside from the kind of universality of it, if that's even a word, I really like the scope of this particular song. It starts out with one individual singing about how he wishes Preacher Herman would stop giving his sermon, and ultimately everybody is basically yelling at him to stop. And you know, it really speaks to this man's determination that even though everybody is yelling at him, he's just kind of tuning them out and continuing with his sermon. It's actually really quite impressive and frustrating. I once listened to a pastor who did basically this exact same thing, and this song does a very good job of reflecting one's frustration. I mean, it does it in a bit more goofy manner, but it still does a good job of just reflecting the exasperation of an entire congregation when the pastor really just doesn't know when to stop.
Really, 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 really great.
I got a friend.
This is the the adventure of the singer and his friend Joe as they make their way to Borneo. This song is slightly implausible simply because Joe and the singer somehow make it from Buffalo, New York to Borneo in the space of one day, but you look past that in songs like this. It's quite entertaining to listen to the song for a variety of reasons. Firstly, it really does sound like an adventure. The music really emphasizes the scope of this song as these two boys traverse the world through a variety of means. Second, there's those variety of means. They start out on bikes, change from bikes to a dog and sled to get past the Rockies, go from a dog and sled to a Cadillac when they get to Reno, go from a Cadillac to a jet when they get to the Pacific Ocean, end up parachuting out of that jet onto a Chinese junk, which then takes them to Borneo. And the dog and sled, Cadillac, and plane all come from various relatives of Joe. I mean, that's a pretty insane amount of everything just to get to one location. Third, there's the singer's constant attempts to not go through with this journey. The song states that this kind of thing has happened many times before, and it is just nice to hear the exasperation in the singer's voice as he tries to get Joe to stop doing this crazy thing. And yet there must be something that draws the singer to this kind of adventure, because despite the fact that he complains through most of it, he still does it. Finally, there's the fact that when they finally do make it to Borneo, instead of taking a moment to relax, the singer declares that he wants to go back to Buffalo, apparently forgetting the oddly convoluted route they took to get to Borneo in the first place. However, he does make a valid point. As fun as it is to travel, it's always nice to come home at the end. But seriously, you could have at least spent a few hours relaxing in Borneo, couldn't you? And after this abrupt change of both time and, clothing, let's move right on with the list.
Really, 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 really great.
The story of Stone Soup is one of those stories that a lot of people know. It's the story of two soldiers who come upon a town so poor that they can barely feed themselves, let alone two soldiers. So these two decide to make soup out of a stone. The town is at first skeptic, but soon everyone is excited and chipping into this soup. So eventually every household donates some sort of food item, and there's eventually enough soup for the entire town. It's just a nice message of sharing, helping everybody out. And Tom Chapin sets it to music wonderfully. This is a folk story, so having it be a folk song just makes sense. I was once in a play that did a version of this story, but it removed all traces of subtlety. This song in no way does that. While it does state the moral at the end of the song, it's still not overly blatant. It's just a wonderful story set to wonderful music.
Really, 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 really great.
There's an ancient occupation.
In case you can't tell, this is a dance song. And when I say this is a dance song, I mean it's a song about dancing and the many different dances around the world. Dance is just one of those things that transcends all cultures. Basically, every single culture around the world has some form of dance, and this song shows that. This song lists the variety of dances, not just here in the US, but around the world. Now, I like to dance, though it's more the theta version of dancing, which is moving around like a crazy person hoping that you kind of know what you're doing, but still, to have a song devoted to many different kinds of dancing is just nice. And it's also just nice to hear snippets of these dances from around the world. And dancing is fun.
Really, 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 really great.
Now, you may not know this about me, but I am a messy person. There's pretty much evidence in all the places I've recorded, from my home back in Hayesville, to my dorm room in Falcon Heights, to my apartment last year. It's really even true here, it's just the fact that this room that I'm recording in currently is not actually my room. Though my stuff still is stacked over here. So, there's that. That's one of the reasons why I really like this song. This song is all about a fellow who spends his life living in this kind of state of a neat mess, which is basically just a mess that still has a certain degree of order to it. He also reveals that everyone tends to live in this kind of state, even those who may complain to this person who lives in this kind of state. And I realized that I was saying that sounded much more confusing. What I'm basically saying is that he has both of his parents come into his room and complain about the mess, and then he reveals that they actually do the exact same thing. We all live in our own version of neat messes. Okay, maybe not everybody, is messy, but everyone still has their own way of living. And though some people may see it as messy. Just remember that happiness is living in a neat mess.
Really, 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 really great.
New kid in school.
One thing that you should know about me is that I am an incredibly shy person around people I don't know. I'm incredibly quiet and don't talk to anybody unless they talk to me first. Why am I telling you all this? Because this song is a song about a shy person. When this song starts, Ty is a new person at the school system who doesn't talk to anybody. Even when everyone else is sitting together during lunch and talking, Ty is sitting by himself being perfectly silent. Most of the people in the school just think he's being rude and don't talk to him. However, Ty eventually wins a basketball game during gym class, and people start talking to him and find out that he is actually a pretty chatty fellow. And once people get to actually talking to him, they realize that he's a very nice individual. It's just a good song showing that not everybody is a talker and that sometimes people are just shy. And speaking from personal experience in that matter, it's just nice to have a song about it.
Really, 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 really great.
As I mentioned in my Tom Chapin video, I grew up on Tom Chapin, and that's true not just for me, but for a lot of my family. Tom Chapin is the singer of choice for my family. My family is also one that sings. Whenever my extended family gets together, which is my dad's side of the family, not my mom's side of the family, when we're not making candy, we sing. There are a few Tom Chapin songs that we sing, and this is one of them. This particular song is about family, hence the name. This tells the story of this singer's family, maybe not Tom Chapin's, but just the generic singer of the song's family, and what his family may soon become. The final verse is about how we are all family. We may come from different places, we may come from different cultures, but deep down, we're still all people. We're all connected in some way, both everyone now and everyone throughout history. It's just a nice song with a nice message attached to it. And it does have that personal connection with me when it comes to my family, which helps.
Really, 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 really great.
Saturday morning and the rain is pouring.
The singer decides to go to the library because it's Saturday and it's raining outside and nobody's doing anything interesting, so library time. The library gives him the chance to use his imagination and his Saturday is saved. Or at least, I assume, the song isn't really about whether or not his Saturday is saved. The whole boring Saturday thing was basically just an excuse for him to go to the library. I really like this song because it uses so many wonderful characters from so many wonderful books. We have Curious George, we have the Cat in the Hat, we have Madeline, we have the Cheshire Cat, we have Sleeping Beauty, we have the Seven Dwarves, and that's just a few of them. Tom Chapin writes for all of these characters, and he writes them all well. I truly believe that these are the characters from the original stories, even though all of them just get a few seconds. The reason that all of these characters come to life is because the singer is reading all these books and using his imagination to bring these characters to life. This is one of the best parts about reading, and it's just really nice to see it in a song. This is a song simply telling people that it's fun to read, and it's fun to use your imagination to bring these characters to life. And that's just wonderful.
Really, 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 really great.
This song is one of his more political ones, though it's not really attacking anyone specific, more attacking everybody. Although it does kind of attack those in power. Basically, the song follows Charlie, an everyday individual who's trying to solve a problem. First, the sewer's backing up, and then acid rain. He takes these problems to those in power, first the mayor and then a congressman, both of which respond by saying that a study is about to begin. After all, they pay good money for these discussions, and discussions do help. Although usually it's because if you discuss a problem long enough, it stops being a problem. Charlie then uses this particular excuse to get out of mowing the lawn, because the study's about to begin, and that will solve all the problems. It's a good song because it reflects everybody's tendencies to procrastinate when it comes to solving problems. We all have this tendency to want to wait out the problem so that hopefully it will solve itself instead of attacking it head on, and this song just does a good job of addressing that.
Really, 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 really great.
I used to live in a telephone booth.
And that's very easy to see this particular selection of songs as cheating. The two songs have literally nothing to do with each other besides being written by the same guy, and you could just say that I put these two together so that I could talk about both of them while keeping the list at 25. And you would partly be right. But there is still a connection that I will get to after I talk about both of these songs. This Pretty Planet is around, and a pretty simple one at that. There really aren't that many lyrics, and the melody itself is actually pretty simple. But that's why I like it. It's a very touching song, reminding all of us what a beautiful planet we live on. It's a very simple reminder that we do all live on a pretty planet, and that it's kept us protected for millennia, and we ourselves need to keep it protected. This particular song never comes right out and says that we need to protect the planet like some of his other songs do, but I do think that the message is still there in this very simple text and this very simple melody. Plenty of Room is just plain goofy. The singer lives in a phone booth and basically ends up inviting the entire town into his phone booth. Sister Sue, Bruno with his 2 St. Bernards, the county choir, 3 fire trucks, all with firefighters inside. And it only stops because the telephone repairman comes in to repair the phone. Of course, this does mean that the telephone booth is bigger on the inside, and that can only mean one thing. Ultimately, this song isn't the touching and beautiful song that This Pretty Planet is. But it's still a wonderful song, all about how you should play with anybody, even if you don't think there's any room. And it's just ridiculous. So, why did I put them together? Well, as I mentioned earlier in this video, Tom Chapin is the family singer. We get together and, as I mentioned, sing a few of his songs, and one of the songs that we sing most often is This Pretty Planet. But on the album in which This Pretty Planet appears, This Pretty Planet is followed immediately by Plenty of Room. And they sound so amazingly different that fairly recently, whenever we would finish singing This Pretty Planet, my Uncle Eric, who plays guitar, would immediately start playing Plenty of Room, and the rest of the family would just start singing along. And that's why they're together. They are forever fused together by my family. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So because this particular video is probably going to go on for an absurdly long time, I'm going to go ahead and stop it here and give you my top 10 in a separate video. I don't know exactly when that's going to be. I'm hoping to be able to post that over the weekend. So look for the top 10 Tom Chapin songs this weekend. Until then.